Prime Video is a weird beast. Usually, scrolling through their library feels like digging through a digital bargain bin. You have to wade through a lot of knockoffs and B-movies just to find something watchable. But every once in a while, they flip the switch and drop a massive collection of genuine heaters. And that is exactly what happened this week. We aren't talking about filler content. We are talking about recent theatrical releases, forgotten masterpieces, and some brand new 2025 horrors that I honestly didn't expect to see streaming this soon. I've combed through the recently added chaos so you don't have to, and I've pulled out 15 flicks that range from certified classic to guilty pleasure. I've got Denzel Washington sweating in Florida, Christopher Nolan breaking brains before he had a budget, and a new creature feature that features some of the best practical effects I've seen in years. Let's get into the good stuff. Number 15, The Iron Claw, 2023. If you are in the mood to have your heart absolutely ripped out of your chest, you need to start with The Iron Claw. I'll be honest, I put off watching this for a while because I knew the true story of the Von Erich brothers, and I wasn't sure I was ready for that level of tragedy. But this movie is so much more than just a sad story. It is a devastatingly beautiful look at brotherhood. Zac Efron gives a performance that completely rewires how you see him as an actor. We are used to seeing him as the heartthrob or the comedy guy, but here, playing Kevin Von Erich, he carries a physical and emotional weight that is stunning. He transforms his body into this hulking, indestructible wrestler, but his eyes are constantly filled with fear and love for his brothers. The movie does a great job of capturing the specific texture of the 1980s wrestling scene, the sweat, the hairspray, the roar of the crowd in those smoky arenas. But the wrestling is just the backdrop. The real conflict is the toxic pressure from their father, played terrifyingly by Holt McCallany, who pushes them to be invincible until they break. It's a heavy watch, no doubt about it. It deals with suicide and loss in a very direct way, but it's also one of the most tender films about male affection I've ever seen. It was criminally snubbed during awards season, and now that it's on Prime, you have no excuse to miss it. Just maybe have a box of tissues nearby. Number 14, Warrior, 2011. Speaking of brothers beating the hell out of each other, Prime also just added Warrior. Now, I know what you're thinking. I don't care about MMA. I don't care about UFC. Trust me, it doesn't matter. This is one of those sports movies that transcends the sport. It's essentially a Greek tragedy wrapped in tap-out gear. You have Tom Hardy playing a traumatized war vet who is basically a feral animal in the ring, and Joel Edgerton playing a physics teacher fighting to save his house. They are on a collision course to fight each other, and the emotional stakes are so high that by the time the final bell rings, you are exhausted. Tom Hardy is genuinely scary in this movie. He barely speaks. He has no technique. He just mauls people. It's a stark contrast to Edgerton's character, who is technical and desperate. The fight choreography is visceral. You feel every bone crunch. But the reason this movie works is the family drama. Nick Nolte plays their recovering alcoholic father, and he gives a heartbreaking performance of a man trying to apologize for a lifetime of mistakes when it's already too late. The ending of this film, set to that specific song by The National, is an all-timer. It will make grown men cry. Even if you hate fighting movies, give this a shot. It's surprising how deeply it cuts. Number 13, Memento, 2000. Let's rewind the clock a bit to the movie that put Christopher Nolan on the map. Memento is one of those films that people talk about as a puzzle, but rewatching it now on Prime, I was struck by how sad it actually is. We all know the gimmick: the story is told backwards because the main character can't form new memories. But this isn't just a stylistic choice to be cool, it forces you into the protagonist's headspace. You are just as confused and paranoid as he is. You don't know why you are running or who the guy chasing you is because the scene started in the middle of the action. Guy Pearce is phenomenal here. He has to play a man who is confident and lost at the same time. The film holds up incredibly well visually too. It's gritty and noir-soaked, feeling much smaller and nastier than Nolan's later polished blockbusters like Inception. It explores really dark themes about how we lie to ourselves to survive. We all edit our own memories to make ourselves the hero, but Leonard Shelby does it with a pen and a Polaroid camera. If you haven't seen this in 20 years, it's worth a revisit. It's tighter and meaner than I remembered, and the ending still hits like a punch to the gut. Number 12, Burn After Reading, 2008. Now, if you need a hard pivot from all that trauma, you have to watch Burn After Reading. The Coen brothers made this right after winning Oscars for No Country for Old Men, and you can tell they just wanted to let loose and make a movie about the absolute stupidest people on the planet. And I mean that as a compliment. This is a spy movie where there are no stakes, no heroes, and nobody knows what is going on. It's a satire of bureaucracy and incompetence. Brad Pitt steals the entire show. Seeing one of the most handsome, cool movie stars in the world play a gum-chewing, Bad highlight wearing gym rat is pure comedy gold. His energy is infectious. He plays Chad Feldheimer with such total commitment to his idiocy that you can't help but love him. The cast is stacked: George Clooney as a paranoid marshal, Frances McDormand as a woman obsessed with plastic surgery, John Malkovich as a furious analyst. It's a cynical movie, for sure. It suggests that the people running the world aren't evil masterminds. They are just petty, confused, and prone to mistakes. It's hilarious, dark, and features one of the most shocking, abrupt death scenes in comedy history. Number 11. The Great Gatsby, 2013. Here is a movie that divides people: Baz Luhrmann's The Great Gatsby. When this came out, a lot of critics hated it. They said it was too loud, too flashy, too modern with the Jay-Z soundtrack. But honestly, that is exactly why it works. Luhrmann understands that the book isn't a quiet romance. It's a critique of the excess and emptiness of the jazz age. So, he cranks the volume up to 11. The parties in this movie look like music videos, exploding with confetti and champagne. It captures the frantic, manic energy of a society on the brink of collapse. Leonardo DiCaprio is the perfect Gatsby. He has that movie star charisma that convinces you he owns the world. But he also captures the nervous, desperate insecurity underneath. He's a fraud, but a romantic one. Watching it now, removed from the hype, it's a visual feast. The costumes, the sets, the camera swooping across the bay, it's pure spectacle. It might not be the most subtle adaptation, but it captures the feeling of the roaring 20s better than any dusty period piece could. It's a tragic, beautiful mess, and I love it for that. Number 10. Out of Time, 2003. We often forget that Denzel Washington is the king of playing men in desperate situations. Out of Time is a Florida noir thriller that has flown under the radar for years, and I'm so glad it's on Prime. Denzel plays a small-town police chief who is well-liked and respected, but he makes a series of bad decisions involving a married woman and some drug money. When she turns up dead in a suspicious fire, he has to investigate the crime while simultaneously covering his own tracks, because all the evidence points to him. The tension in this movie is unbearable. It's a ticking clock scenario, where Denzel is in almost every scene, sweating through his shirt, lying to his colleagues, and improvising his way out of disaster. Director Carl Franklin captures the humid, sticky atmosphere of the Florida Keys perfectly. You can practically feel the heat radiating off the screen. It's fun to watch Denzel play a guy who isn't the smartest person in the room. He's just scrambling to survive. It's a tight, efficient 90s-style thriller that delivers exactly what it promises: stress, twists, and Denzel being charismatic even when he's guilty. Number 9. In the Heart of the Sea, 2015. Before Chris Hemsworth was Fat Thor, he starved himself to play a shipwrecked sailor in The Heart of the Sea. This is the true story that inspired Moby Dick, and it is a brutal watch. It's not an adventure movie. It's a survival horror film set on the open ocean. A massive white whale attacks their ship, the Essex, and sinks it, leaving the crew drifting for months in tiny lifeboats. They face starvation, dehydration, and eventually, they have to make the terrible choice to eat the dead to survive. The production value here is massive. Ron Howard directs it with an old-school, epic scale. The whale attacks are terrifying. The sound design makes the creature feel like a force of nature, heavy and unstoppable. But the real horror is the human element. Watching Cillian Murphy, Tom Holland, and Hemsworth deteriorate physically and mentally is gripping. It's a film that strips away the romance of the high seas and shows the bloody, gritty reality of the whaling industry. It didn't make a huge splash at the box office, probably because it's so grim, but it's a visually spectacular film that deserves a second look. Number 8. The Creator, 2023. Now, let's talk about a sci-fi movie that I think will be looked back on as a cult classic. The Creator, directed by Gareth Edwards, is a visual miracle. They made this for a fraction of the cost of a Marvel movie, yet it looks better than almost anything else released in the last decade. The world building is staggering. You have giant tanks rolling through rice paddies in vivid detail, massive space stations beaming light down to Earth, and robots that look incredibly tactile and real. It blends that gritty apocalypse, now war aesthetic with high-concept futurism perfectly. I will admit, the script has some issues. It leans on some familiar tropes, the lone wolf protecting a special child thing we've seen in The Mandalorian and The Last of Us. But the execution elevates it. John David Washington gives a solid performance, but the real star is the design work. Every vehicle, every gun, every background character feels like they belong in a lived-in world. It explores themes of AI and empathy in a way that feels relevant. Even if the story is simple, the spectacle is undeniable. It's the kind of original sci-fi we always say we want more of, so it's worth supporting. Number 7. Alien: Romulus, 2024. The Alien franchise has had a bumpy ride, but Alien: Romulus is a return to form. It feels like the director, Fede Alvarez, looked at the prequels and said, "Okay, Enough philosophy, let's just make it scary again. And he succeeded. This movie is nasty, claustrophobic, and intense. It's set between the first two films and follows a group of young scavengers who board a derelict space station, only to find the ultimate killing machine waiting for them. What makes this surprisingly good is the commitment to practical effects. The facehuggers are real puppets, the sets are physical, and the xenomorph is a guy in a suit for a lot of the shots. It gives the movie a texture that CG I just can't replicate. The facehugger sequence in the flooded room is one of the best set pieces in the entire franchise. It had me holding my breath. It honors the retro-futuristic aesthetic of the 1979 original, with clunky keyboards and flickering CRT monitors. It doesn't try to reinvent the wheel, it just wants to lock you in a dark room with a monster and see if you survive. It's a lean, mean horror machine. Number 6. Marrowbone, 2017. Here is a hidden gem that I guarantee most of you scrolled past. Marrowbone is a gothic horror movie that features an insane cast of young stars before they blew up: Anya Taylor-Joy, Mia Goth, Charlie Heaton. It's about 4 siblings who hide out in a dilapidated rural farmhouse to stay together after their mother dies. They are terrified that if the authorities find out, they will be separated. But there is also something sinister living in the walls of the house. This isn't a jump scare fest. It plays more like a dark fairy tale or a psychological drama. The atmosphere is thick with dread, using the creaky, dusty house to make you feel isolated. But what really hooks you is the bond between the siblings. You root for them to survive, which makes the horror elements hit harder. The twist in the third act is genuinely shocking. It recontextualizes the entire film and turns it into a heartbreaking tragedy. It's beautifully shot and acted with immense sincerity. If you liked The Others or The Orphanage, this is playing in that same sandbox of emotional, character-driven horror. Number 5. Final Destination, Bloodlines, 2025. Just when you thought this franchise was dead and buried, Final Destination, Bloodlines brings it back to life. I went into this with low expectations usually. By the 6th movie, a horror series is running on fumes. But this one surprised me. It keeps the core formula we love. A group of people survive a disaster, thanks to a premonition, and then death comes back to collect them in elaborate, Rube Goldberg-style accidents. But it adds some new lore about bloodlines that actually makes the mythology interesting again. The opening disaster sequence is jaw-dropping. They use modern VFX to create a nightmare scenario that will make you terrified of public transport all over again. And the kills? They are creative, gory, and darkly funny. The movie knows exactly what it is, a roller coaster ride for gorehounds. It plays with your expectations, setting up 3 different ways a character could die, only to hit them with a 4th one you didn't see coming. It brings back Tony Todd, which is always a win. It's not high art, but as a popcorn horror movie to watch with friends, it delivers exactly the kind of chaotic fun you want. Number 4. Drop, 2025. If you want a movie that will spike your blood pressure, check out Drop. This is the latest from Christopher Landon, who directed Happy Death Day, and it is a high-concept thriller that grabs you by the throat immediately. The premise is simple. A woman goes on a blind date, and midway through, she gets an anonymous text saying that if she drops her phone or disconnects the call, she dies. It turns a mundane dinner date into a life-or-death situation. Megan Fahey is fantastic in the lead role. The whole movie rests on her ability to look terrified while trying to act normal in a public place. The tension is relentless, because it takes place in real time. You are with her every second as she tries to figure out who is doing this and how to escape. It's a smart commentary on how tethered we are to our devices, but mostly it's just a great exercise in suspense. It feels like a mix of phone booth and a modern dating nightmare. It's lean, fast, and doesn't waste a single second. Number 3. The Tank, 2023. I'm a sucker for a good creature feature, and The Tank is a solid one that went under the radar. It's a New Zealand horror film about a family that inherits an abandoned coastal property. The property comes with a massive, overgrown water tank that hasn't been opened in decades. Naturally, the dad goes down to fix the water pressure and wakes up something ancient that has been breeding in the dark. What makes this worth watching is the creature effects. They were done by Weta Workshop, the legends behind Lord of the Rings, so the monsters look incredible. They are practical, slimy, amphibious things that feel real. The movie takes its time building the atmosphere, establishing the isolation of the setting, but once the creatures come out, it's pure nightmare fuel. There are a lot of scenes of characters crawling through tight, dark pipes with only a flashlight, which is claustrophobic as hell. It feels like a lost classic from the 80s, prioritizing suspense and creature design over cheap digital effects. Number 2. Nosferatu, 2024. Robert Eggers does not miss. His remake of Nosferatu is finally streaming, and it is a gothic masterpiece. If you've seen The Witch or The Lighthouse, you know Eggers is obsessed with historical accuracy and atmosphere. This movie drips with dread, Bill Skarsgård plays Count Orlok, and he is terrifying. He's not a sexy vampire. He's a rat-like, ancient creature that feels like a disease. The film follows the classic story, but it shifts the focus to the female lead, played by Lily Rose Depp. She isn't just a victim here. She has a strange, psychic connection to the vampire that borders on obsession. The cinematography is bleak and beautiful, using shadows to hide the monster until the perfect moment. It's a slow burn, for sure. It relies on the sound of creaking floorboards and howling wind to scare you rather than loud noises. It's a respectful update that understands why the original was scary, but brings a modern intensity that makes the vampire feel dangerous again. Number 1. Heda, 2025. And finally, we have Heda. This is a modern reimagining of the classic play Hedda Gabler, directed by Nia DaCosta. Tessa Thompson stars as the title character, and she is electric. Heda is a woman who is bored, trapped in a marriage she hates, and dangerous. For her own amusement, she starts manipulating the lives of everyone around her, pushing them toward destruction. This isn't a stuffy period piece where everyone talks in riddles. It's filmed with a sharp, modern energy that makes the dialogue feel like a weapon. Thompson plays Heda not as a villain, but as a chaotic force of nature. She is charming one minute and cruel the next. It's a tense, uncomfortable watch because you can see the train wreck coming, but you can't look away. The production design is stark and cold, reflecting how empty she feels inside. It's a masterclass in tension that proves these old stories still have teeth if you tell them right. So there you have it. 15 movies on Prime Video that are absolutely worth your time. Whether you want the high-octane stress of a Denzel thriller, the emotional devastation of the Iron Claw, or just some good old-fashioned alien horror, Prime has actually stepped up its game this month. I'll keep tracking the new additions, so you don't have to scroll for hours. Thanks for checking out the list. Make sure to hit that subscribe button to keep up with the best streaming picks, and I'll see you on the next one.